Dear ladies and gentlemen, once again, very early good morning to you. It is my pleasure that I can be a moderator of this plenary discussion. I am Marek Čanecký, I am chairman of the program committee of ITAPA, and I would like to introduce our distinguished participants, speakers, discussants, who are really persons who know something about the subject. We have a very good mixture of people who are from the private sector, from the research sector, and also from, so to say, non-governmental or lobby sector. Or yeah, Luigi, you can later on specify it more in detail. So I would like to introduce. I will begin from my right-hand side. Unfortunately, the guy who was supposed to be sitting on from my right-hand side is Rastislav Janota. He is stuck in a traffic jam, so he'll be joining us in hopefully 10 minutes. He's a special advisor to the Slovak National Security Authority or National Security Office. Then, here he comes. Okay. That's really a good timing. So this is Rastislav Janota. Then we have Ondřej Šťáhlavský, who is director for Central and East Europe or in the company Fortinet. Then Martin Sůra, CEO of ATOS. He's CEO of ATOS both in Slovakia and the Czech Republic. Then Philip Chertoff. He is American, but he's a researcher based here in Bratislava, working for the Globsec Policy Institute. Next gentleman is Jean-pierre Nordvik. He's a researcher from the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And the last one is Luigi Rebuffi. He is the president of the European Cybersecurity Organization. Now I would like to give a few minutes, 5 maximum, to each of the participants so that they can introduce themselves more in detail, and so that they also can set some kind of set up what is their position in the field of cybersecurity, so that we know the context when we discuss the question that we have prepared, and so that you can better understand why they look at things in ways they do. So from where do we start? Rastu, do you want to start? Okay, so the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for the possibility to be first. I came last, so I'm first with introduction. My name is Rastislav Janota. I'm acting currently as the chairman of the Cybersecurity Committee of the Security Council of the Slovak government. And in parallel, I'm advising director of the National Security Authority in area of cybersecurity. So that's about me. What we are doing right now at the National Security Authority, 2 things, legislation. You are aware of NIS directive, which is topic of this year in the cyber legislation area. It should be transposed into the national legislation by May next year. Just recently, government approves our proposal of the law, so next few months it will be in Parliament, and hopefully it will be approved by Parliament before deadline for Slovakia. And of course we are developing real hands-on skills. So 2 things, it's always a mixture of the legislation, methodology, bylaws, etc. with the hands-on skills. So this is brief introduction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ondřej Šťáhlavský. I'm currently Regional Director for Central and Eastern Europe at Fortinet. For those who don't know what Fortinet is, it's one of the largest security vendor worldwide, pretty global company from that scope. And I assume I'm here to represent a bit of the commercial and the technical part because I'm also last 15 years in the cybersecurity topic, not only this in the sales area, but as well in consulting and technical areas. I've been working at Fortinet also in the post-sale technical support and other stuff, so I believe I got some insight into cybersecurity, just briefly.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sůra, and I'm serving as the CEO for ATOS in Czech Republic and Slovakia. I'm also representing here the commercial sector. We, as the largest European IT company, we do focus on the area of security very seriously. We do focus also on the research and development in this area, and with the respect of the privacy, which is always a tricky game between, or might be a tricky game between the security and the privacy elements of this. Locally, we are the company who is also consulting, implementing, and helping our clients, both governments and the commercial enterprise sector, to implement the projects regarding the privacy and the security. And globally, we are very much involved into developing something which is related to the quantum computing and the future concept of prescriptive security, which we will probably have a chance to talk later on. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chertoff. Thank you, Marek, for inviting me to this great Congress, and looking forward to seeing some of the other panels. I'm a junior research fellow at the Globsec Policy Institute, which is the think tank or research branch of a local NGO called Globsec, which, if you don't know, runs an annual conference called the Globsec Rastislav Forum, touching on policy and security topics for the transatlantic region, bringing together stakeholders from the private sector, civil society, and government. My work within the Globsec Policy Institute is focused on cybersecurity, specifically looking at opportunities for interchange between the public and private sector, cyber norms, operational improvements, and generally trying to build the level of trust and understanding between the various stakeholders in the cybersecurity environment. So I'm very excited to be on such a panel with diverse speakers and support that effort even more. And I think we can dive more into the type of topics that I usually work on the panel. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Jean-pierre Nordvik speaking. Thank you very much to the organizer, Marek, for inviting me. I am head of unit of the Cyber and Digital Citizen Security Unit within the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. The Joint Research Center is basically the in-house scientific body of the European Commission. It carries out itself research as well as work in order to make sense of research done by others, with the objective to support the EU policy cycle. In this capacity, I have the pleasure to look at the cybersecurity file and to interact very much with all the colleagues of the European Commission, and there are many involved in cybersecurity matters. So I work closely with those who have been preparing the text of the cybersecurity package recently issued within DG Connect, but also with all those colleagues working in industrial vertical sector, like in transport, like in industry, or all those working on fundamental rights, such as our colleagues working on the General Data Protection Reform, for example, and also with those working on security and cybercrime activities. in particular is working with Europol and the European cybercrime centers.
Your activities are really horizontal. How big is your research team?
My research team is something like 45 persons, federating the different the resource directly directed on cybersecurity and cybercrime. Of course, many people have formation in ICT, and if you extend the capacity and the competencies, then you grow in number. And as I will have the possibility to express afterwards, one of the major issues is fragmentations, and also in that case, fragmentation is also an issue that we have to address.
Okay, Luigi.
So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Luigi Rebuffi. I'm the Secretary General of the European Cybersecurity Organization. And as Marek said, it's a lobby. It's not a lobby. It's not a lobby because...
Please explain.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Because for 10 years, I set up and run in Brussels a lobby organization. A lobby organization is dealing with security in general, all different areas of security. The lobby is when you deal with one sector, industry or one sector, the security industry in that case, and university and research center, but you only do and push for idea for promoting, advocating idea in one sector. Here, things are different. With ECSO, it has been created 1 year ago to support the implementation of the cybersecurity public-private partnership with the European Commission. And I had the honor to sign this PPP with Commissioner Oettinger at the European Parliament in Strasbourg. And the thing that from the very beginning, we realized that this is not a lobby. This is a representation or a kind of advisor to the European Commission, but also to the Parliament, the Council, and the different member states about cybersecurity. Because in ECSO, so the European Cybersecurity Organization, we have members from all the different sectors. So we have members from the transport, from the banks, from the energy sector, from the supplier, like ATOS, for instance, who is the chairman of the board, by the way. And we have also representatives from member states. So Slovakia, under which this agreement has been signed under Slovakia presidency of the Union. So we are working since the very beginning, and we have public administration even in the board of directors and working in our working group. This makes things completely different. You have to understand that in Brussels, things are quite complex, taking a lot of time, by the way, to reach this kind of, let's say, of public-private partnership. We have worked for something like 5-6 years. I remember first time it was discussing with the Commission was 2011 in April under the Hungarian presidency. And so it's taking a certain time. But then we really managed to progressively to put things together, and it happened, as I said, beginning of last year, beginning of 2016, when the Commission said, we have now to go. And at that time, I'm now expanding. So after my presentation, I'm expanding in topics, so like the others will likely do. At that time, the Commission will, okay, they had to be, that they had in their let's say, agenda to sign this public-private partnership, but I had the feeling they were still not fully convinced of the emergency of dealing with cybersecurity. And then, but they were convinced that we have to do it together with the public, the private, the user, the suppliers, and so on. And then progressively, in the last year, things have enormously accelerated. Because if cybersecurity, we know that it's an issue for years from the economic point of view, because you can talk about hundreds of billions of potential damages in cybersecurity. But the figure is not known, by the way, because it's difficult. And also, you have the potential threat to the privacy of the society, of the citizens. But what was still not sufficiently known at that time is a potential threat to the democratic life. And then suddenly, because the American election last year, the things exploded. And now everybody, all the politicians, especially in Brussels, but also at country level, they're very worried about potential cyber threat. So these things is taking immediately a different level of importance at the country level, but also in Brussels. And now cybersecurity today, in 2017, is one of the major priority for the European institutions, which is helping us in developing. So we started from something like 130 members. Now we are more than 220 and growing. But also making things more and more complex because, as I said before, we are not a lobby. We try to put together the different aspects of our life. And having somehow to find, the first important thing is that we are discussing together, that we are trying to find some common views for the future. So now let's talk about the future, forget the past. Finding common views for the future is extremely complex because we have seen that when Jean-Pierre mentioned the strategy, which has been issued on the 13th of the review of the strategy, which has been issued on 13th of September of this year. There are issues which are still difficult to manage collectively. You said, you used the word fragmentation. Not only fragmentation, but simply the interest of the different sectors are different. When we talk about certification, certification depends on who wants what. Certain sectors are more mature, others are less mature. Others, they want to keep their own interest because they have an established business model. The SMEs, they don't want much certification because it increases cost and takes time. But at the same time, we as citizens, we need to have, to be reassured that what the solution which are used for our computer, but also when we take a plane or when we take a car, these are sufficiently secure in order to protect our life, our economy, and so on. So, and this certification can provide this service. So we are at the very beginning of a big discussion, of a big dialogue. And where are we going in the future? Because then also there is the role. In this, we will, I'm supposed, with the different members of the panel, we will develop this, the different topic of the strategy, where we have the resilience of the society, but also the cybercrime issue and international relationship. Maybe international relationship is more, maybe not suitable for this, for here, because I think maybe what is more important for you is to discuss how this strategy will apply also at a national level here, at local level. But the evolution of the future is we'll deal with new technologies. We see, when we started 1 year ago, we are still mildly discussing or discussing what could be the main evolution for the future. And we heard, quantum computing. That's something which will change completely the view that we have. We cannot even imagine how it will be in the future. But also, let's say some technology which are more understandable, like the IoTs. We had panel yesterday here, but we also there we have we understand what will be the impact of several tens of billions of IoT out in the nature without any security, because still today we have difficulty to identify what is and will be the security of IoTs. So you can imagine all this will be entry door for threats. What will be the impact of the 5G? Because they are just now starting discussing of what could be the security of the 5G. And all this blockchain and so on, other fancy technology which will come up and which are coming up and will be introduced in our application. So all this, from the technology point of view, things will evolve. The threats will evolve. The way also the Commission and the countries will tackle cybersecurity is evolving, because they are proposing to create a network of competence centers at European level, which will somehow create the link among the different countries. and ECSO is also there to support this. So the link means the competence in the country. A country like Slovakia, it's one of the questions we still have, how the country will react, what they will propose, and how this will be put together in order to have a synergetic effect and grow Europe, make Europe more competent and more competitive at global level. And one of the points also which is clearly identified in the strategy of the Commission is that the extreme need for experts. You know, in this communication, it's written that the Commission is looking, according to one of the study mentioned there is a need of 350,000 experts in the next 5 years for the private sector. 350,000. It's a nice number, but when you break it down per country, an exercise that we are doing, it's a huge number, because it's today our society, our universities, our industry is not ready to see how this can be simply trained or educated and so on. So we are facing a challenge there, because there is a need from the market. We see our big industries, especially in ECSO, saying we need 100, 200 experts now, because we have business and we cannot do business. We have to protect our customers and we cannot do it. We need even operators, energy operators, so on, say we need hundreds of experts because we want to protect our network, but we cannot find them on the market. And this is also a big problem, and this is a problem at global level, and we have to solve this. And when I'm going around Europe meeting people like you, I'd say one of my first messages is, let's try to mobilize the public administration, because education is, first of all, is a national prerogative, cannot be managed by Brussels. So let's see what can be done in order to mobilize more efforts at national level to start education from a very young level and bring it up to competence. You don't need to be everybody to be a PhD or whatever, but you need to bring up the awareness and the education of the population and to have more students interested in this area, which is an area which there are plenty of jobs. And one last point I would say is that we will do it even better, and if we give us more chances to have this population and to fill these 350,000. But today we are lacking half of these chances, because we see, as in other sector, that there is a big gender issue. We don't have enough women participating in this to fill this gap. And so there is
we do have quite a few women here, as I can see.
That's what I'm seeing, and very, very nice, very interesting, because it's sometimes, very often there is a disproportion. But indeed, when you think that when we have to fill 350,000 position, let me say, and we start already with half of the chances, and we know that it's also practically mission impossible. That's something where we can work in the future. So I stop here, because I think it's...
Luigi, thank you for a very good introduction to the topic. You actually put forward some of the points we'll be discussing. Maybe at this point I would try to make some kind of first very general conclusions or conclusion. So definitely the realm of cybersecurity is a very complex realm. Its span is huge in terms of in the horizontal direction as well as in the vertical direction. And as we all know, cyber attacks, cyber crime, cyber terrorism, cyber threats, they do not know any borders. And by borders, I don't mean just borders of the EU. By borders, I mean the whole world. So really, this issue is extremely complex, and the damage that can be done can be really huge if we don't work together and if we don't tackle things and if we're not prepared, so to say. So can we start discussing? So firstly, maybe the first general question would be, just to warm up a little bit, we know what is the current setup in the field of cybersecurity on the EU level. Is mainly the NIS directive, the currently function ENISA. What do you think this current development that has been in the last, let's say, 7 to 5 years, has it been working and functioning well? And what have been its biggest strengths, and on the other hand, the biggest setbacks? Who wants to start? Whoever wants to start can.
So I'll get.
Because we are not building it from the scratch now,
No, we're
right?
not building from the scratch. You will not expect from a civil servant, the European Commission, a vivid critic of the
Well, we have some
existing
other
security,
people who
because the
can be
Commission
more
speaks
critical.
with one voice only. But witnessing what has been happening in the dynamic is that clearly we all have a difficult uphill journey. And you said why, and I think it's important because the thing is complex. But we need to understand why it is complex. Complex, it's because you cannot really cut the problem in little pieces and address it one by one on a piecemeal approach. Okay, and this, I think, this was a logic that was put in the 2013 strategy, which was extremely timely and was absolutely needed at the time, but have shown also its limits over this last year, given the pace of the technology and the different issues that we can also address in our democracy, etc., etc. So the biggest setback that there is, it was mentioned, is for me really fragmentations. And fragmentation across many different dimensions. Fragmentation between European level, national level, regional and local level, and the local level goes up to the level of the citizens. It is extremely important that we can be inclusive and trying to reach so that our policies do provide values for our end users, for our citizens, and protect them. And at the same time, it is important that the member states overtake their national views and understand that it is a win-win situation and that we have to work all together if we want to have a chance to address correctly the complex issue at hand. Fragmentation also between industrial sectors, ICT, health, energy, transport are dealt relatively in silos today, and really there should be a need to have an integrated approach. It is very, very important there. And also fragmentations in terms of research, industry, civil society representations, and public sectors. Also there's a need for more inclusion and more understanding of what is at stake, so that consensus, so that participatory solutions are found together. You mentioned a lot about lobbies, which have a kind of a negative connotations, I have to say. But I witnessed the work of ECSO and of other associations, and we have moved quite a way along from the old lobby situation of years ago and into a much more open, constructive, and discussions with all the partners, where it is only by talking, by being inclusive, and by realizing all together that we're facing a major issue that we'll find a solution together. I'd like to give also some optimism here, because we heard yesterday that we need to be optimistic and not to have always a depressive, negative view of things. And in Europe, I think we still have a number of basic strengths. First of all, there is this awareness which has been raising quite a lot, recently. It is extremely important, in particular when this awareness are in the understanding, in the insights our political leaders. They are driving and instructing us on how to move ahead in our society, and I believe strongly that awareness is there, very strongly anchored in their mindset right now. Okay? The other thing is that we often forget that we are the largest, globally largest market in the world. This is quite powerful, more than 550 billion citizens, global market, digital single market. We should leverage, we should protect and leverage this potential for the benefit of our society. We have also a very strong research and industry networks, which may not be always at the top in terms of stakes, shares holdings in all these graphs, but they've proven, and from an academical point of view, have shown to be really excellent there. And so we can tap onto this capacity and potential. And perhaps more importantly of all, we also have a specific mindset with respect to fundamental rights and values. And we saw yesterday that this is perhaps the most important things in order to save humanity. We had an excellent presentation there. And we are, in Europe, the leader in trying to bring forward enlightening the importance of this value with a fundamental right, with these values, with, for instance, in a very specific case, general data protection reform. I think this is quite a strength and not something negative. And we have to build on that because we will be better equipped in order to face and to address the complexity of the issue at hand.
Rasto?
I will try to add maybe a little bit more down to the earth comments to the question. We are mainly talking, even it is not only about, but we are mainly talking about internet and users of internet. Everyone, he, she is responsible for her, his own data. This is the cyber and security in the internet area is not possible to do from the central point. It's not like an army, when the army is protecting the country and citizens, etc. With internet technology, with the architecture, how it is done in the network, everyone should be, should have enough information to protect himself, herself. And this is quite a tricky point. It could be done with the companies who are ready to invest a reasonable amount of money to the knowledge, to the processes, to the technology, so they can protect themselves to some extent. But on the citizens level, it's a little bit more complicated. But back to the original question and the EU role. Of course, if we are not able to protect our citizens from one point, then EU definitely is not the helping point to protect us as a whole group of nations. But there is a quite a long list of roles, areas where EU could help, very visible. From the legislation point of view, for instance, NIS directive was a very good first step. Cyber topic, cyber security, cyber crime, very international question, very international area. You know, we are working with, on the legislation level, we are working on the territories. So different country, different legislation. But in the cyber area, nothing is really protected by borders. If there is a crime activity, it is always cross-border inside that activity. And then we might end up, it's not cross-border in Europe, it's cross-border worldwide, as Marek said at the beginning. So we end up in a situation then somewhere on the chain, there is a country where such activity is not a crime. So once you are trying to get an information during the investigation, that particular country where that activity is not a crime will not help you to investigate. So many things are quite complicated to investigate. One of the role of the EU in the future would be definitely to mitigate, to foster unification, at least to some extent, unification of the crime codexes around the world in order to really allow law enforcement agencies to investigate better than it is possible right now. And other role of the EU is fostering, supporting research. This is clear role. I'd like to also mention the cyber package, which was just recently announced from the Commission level. There are more parts of the package. Certification was mentioned. For me, the certification is a critical point. We need it. Question is, if certification proposal in the package presented by Commission is something what will solve the problem or not. But this is for different discussion. Definitely certification is something which is needed. The other part was the change of the mandate of ENISA, which is European Cybersecurity Organization, which is again something what is very important. ENISA is quite some time on the market, and now we are finally reached the point where it's time to enlarge ENISA's role, add new activities to the ENISA, primarily on fostering the cooperation and information sharing, and of course, let's say, activities before the incidents would happen. Once there is an incident, incident handling is a part of the national security if it is such big, and this is something which could not be done from the EU level, from the EU agency level. It is clear responsibility of the member state and cooperation between the member states or states in general within the world area. So there is a lot of activities we might do in the future, and for me the clear and most visible problem, personnel, staff, HR, whatever name we will use for the same problem. So we are looking for different options how to do our activities with not enough human capacities behind, and this is quite a tricky point. Thank you.
Thank you, Rasto. Ondřej?
Okay, so I'll try to be here. Despite being said that we shouldn't be too negative, I'll be a bit negative. Because if I have a look on what has been happening up to now, and now I'm not speaking from point of view of a vendor, but I'm speaking from a citizenship point of view, where I'm a citizen of a EU country. And when I see what are the activities that are leading now to cybersecurity package, I say, okay, this is a positive trend, no doubt. The thing is that, as with always in security, we're late. We're late a couple of years. We're late because we're dealing with the situation now. Now everyone is speaking of a future, that what is going to come, what is be that, and that. And I see that from the European perspective, okay, building a huge structure of regulations and whatever, it cannot come in time for whatever is going to happen now, next week, in 2 years, 5 years. It's not going to come in time. So when I see...
you're claiming that we're a little bit behind compared to the other global regions in the world, like the US and China?
Obviously, it's a different topic with what we are competing with. If I will speak of China, yes, we are late. We are, compared to China, we are light years behind. Compared to US, we are light years behind, okay? It's because we have this complex, setting of nations, whatever. So at the end of the day, anyway, it's going to be national agenda of each and every state at the moment, to help himself. But where I see the role, okay, is obviously on trying to get the national agendas together. So the companies, or let's say the organizations which are behind the cybersecurity topic locally, just to coordinate. So I like the idea of having like the CERT, the European CERT, better, you know, like steered and not bad is the idea with the certifications in general. The thing is that now I'm speaking from a vendor perspective. The certification is a tricky stuff. Everyone here in the room knows the common criteria, I believe. The thing is that they have been taken as the biggest standard, you know, regarding the security worldwide, and they are useless. Okay?
Are they?
They are, for sure. Because if you see how the certifications are being set, that there exists a certification organizations in Asia, in Europe, in US, the certification from Asia is not being taken as that good as a certification from somewhere else. So that's one thing. The other thing is none of the companies giving you the source code. And even they gave you the source code, there is no one who can understand what the source code is doing. So at the end of the day, all the certifications which are bound to security, if they should go somewhere in the depth, and I believe Mr. Janota will confirm, so if you want to go into the real certification that this product, this device is secure, you don't know. Even you got the source code, you got everything, you don't know if it's really secure. So is the certification, you know, like reality? Is it really covering the problem? I think that if we should go towards the certification phase, we should more set the standards. Okay, so not really. I don't trust that we are able to build up a real certification bureau that will be able to stamp the product and say this is secure. No, that's gonna be done by market. The market will, you know,
There are millions of products.
Find out, okay? But if this commission will go, or the agency will go towards the setting up standards, okay? Go and take the known good standards like something from ISO, from that and that, put the pieces together, best practices, and set up a proper standards for the solutions, for the way how to protect. Okay, then I believe that there is a space. If I can take here an example, it's in Czech Republic we are a bit of ahead, okay, from the others, because we have the cybersecurity law in place in Czech Republic, and the cybersecurity law was also dealing with the situation wherever this is possible to set some certifications, whatever. It was completely abandoned, and we're only going through the way of the recommendations of the standards. Technical standards, you know, if you have a look inside, you will see good old ISO 27000 norms and whatever, just transcript it to the let's say more general meanings. So at the end of the day, if I'm turning back to the original thing, I think like turning the NISA into the agency, setting certification, it's a good thing, but I don't see that it's gonna bring anything to us within the next 2-3 years that will save us from any cyber incident and threats.
Okay, now I would just like, Jean-Pierre, I would just like to ask you for a very quick direction. Is your research team also doing research on this cyber certification, and are you also including or taking account also of the global standards or standards that are being in place in the US or in the other regions?
Yeah, well, the activity of standardization is an important activity. Clearly, standardization is actually trying to set something for the future, and it takes time. So with your logic of the timing where we are late, and I will agree with you, today standardization bodies are taking time to deliver. Okay, and then we can discuss a lot also the influence of industry in deriving these standards and all these kind of things. Yes, we are working on standardization. I just can tell you that we've been working heavily in the ISO standardization working groups for distributed ledgers, just to cite one forthcoming important groundbreaking game changer technologies. But we are also using existing certification framework like the common criteria framework, and we just have published recently or have provided the materials in order afterward that for BSI to publish and approve certified the security profile for our digital tachograph equipment, since it just happened that we are running the public infrastructure at root level, and we are a certification authority for that. It required a lot of time to prepare this security profile. It took us 9 months and a lot of resources to do that. So of course you cannot think of having such an effort focusing on IoT devices. We need to find something different. And this is all the difficulty which is behind this effort on certification. And this multi-approach which is somehow there, the different types of regimes, both for products and surfaces. Oh, I added surfaces, so it's not anymore about IoT devices, now it's about surfaces. So it's really huge, and it's going to be a challenge. It's not going to be solid one day. It's a start of a journey, and we've been working on that. If you look at the impact assessment at the different technical annexes which are part of this of the package, you'll find some of our writings there. Nevertheless, I think it is quite a big improvement with respect to the 2013 proposals, where we had tried to put already there at the time some provisions in order to go towards certification, standardization, certification, minimum security for products and suppliers, which is not the case now because it's services-oriented providers. But we failed because at the time probably the market, the mindset was not ready for that. Honestly, personally, even if it's very difficult, as you argue, I would say that we should not be only voluntary, we should be mandatory, because somehow there's an issue about liability, okay? And somewhere a game changer would be to be able to have a liability on the issue which are connected to cybersecurity, which comes on the mandatory fact of being compliant with some standards that need to be certified and potentially branded, labelized, so that the end user recognizes what he or she has in front of them.
Okay. Thank you for your reaction. Now we continue with Martin Sůra.
I would like to be a little bit more provocative here, because this was all very solid, we are on the way, and so on. What my feeling is that, and it's a general rule, that the security is as strong as its weakest part. And we said a lot of fragmentation, we are coming from the different heritage or a different level of the countries. And I had a chance to meet the guy from the European Commission who was responsible for protection of the critical infrastructure of the European Union some time ago. And I asked him how we are really protected. And his answer was, I cannot give you the answer, but I can give you the answer about the US situation. And he said at that time that they have been, with their capacities, able to tackle 10% attacks which were coming daily just from China. So 90% of the attacks they were not able to tackle. The good news, or bad news, depends, is 99.9% of those attacks were just stealing information. There was not really malicious attacks on the infrastructure. And I don't want to be very negative here, but we are living in a really peaceful time here in Europe, yet. Despite all the situation, there is no war zone here in the cyberspace. And for me, we should really speed up to cover those
What about Ukraine?
Yeah. And you mentioned the almost critical lack of resources in this area. The good news, and now I'm starting to sell, is that the technology can help a lot. The technology is used also to overcome security, but the technology can help to tighten and identify those gaps in that security part. And I think what was, and it's the topic which was mentioned here already, quantum computing, the artificial intelligence, which will go and help beyond the people to really look at the vulnerabilities, to look at the areas of the suspicious behavior, this is the areas where the technology can really help and is helping. So if we don't have enough people, we should really take use of the technology to be a little bit safer here.
Okay, Philip?
Well, I was going to be more neutral, but now I feel like I also have to be somewhat controversial.
Yeah, being American, doing research in Europe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I'll say this is that at the end of the day, when it comes down to working on cybersecurity in a group setting, trust is kind of the fundamental foundational component of it. I mean, when it comes to information sharing, when it comes to sharing best practices, at the operational level, when you're dealing with a cyber attack which has cross-border implications, I think that trust is obviously a critical component and something which has improved a lot over the last several years. I'll take, for example, EU-NATO defense cooperation. If you use the term EU-NATO defense cooperation 5 years ago, I think some people might slap you. But I think that now, obviously, cyber defense is one critical area where the EU and NATO have decided to work closely together on this. So I think that can be said for a lot of the components throughout the EU. I think that, but obviously we are still behind. I'd say you shouldn't be looking at the US and China too closely because they're behind as well. I mean, I think that everybody is behind, so we shouldn't be too hard on Europe specifically. And we do need to move faster, but I also think we need to operate smarter. As Rastislav brought up, the NIS directive was a good first step. GDPR, I'd say, is also an important, effort in this regard. But there was the recent September package of kind of cybersecurity measures, and a lot of them were very good, and the components of that were important. But others I was slightly confused about, and to be honest, were slightly ahead of themselves. So I think that one thing that we need to think about is, it's often said that offense is substantially easier than defense. It's far easier to launch an attack than it is to defend something. So when we decide to make decisions to operate in certain areas and develop our capabilities in certain areas, we need to choose things that are going to increase our capacity significantly. We should make sure that we're investing smart in things that are substantially going to enhance our ability to defend the parts of our infrastructure that we need to defend. And I think that that's not necessarily happening at the moment, and it's something that we need to think about. I think as well, there's a tendency to believe that everything needs to happen either at the EU level or the national level. And I think that every state in the EU has their own unique perspective on cybersecurity. Some are driving it from the military, some are driving it from the security apparatus, some are driving it from kind of more of the informatization perspective. And so I think that there are more opportunities to cooperate bilaterally, regionally, that should be supported and should be grown than maybe is happening right now. There's a tendency to kind of want to drive everything up to the EU level. So I think that there's a lot of political will now, which is good and which is important, and I think there's a lot of attention to it as an agenda item, but we need to think a lot harder about being effective with the way that we invest and develop our cybersecurity capabilities.
Okay, do you want to react very quickly? Then we
just
question or comment from the audience.
Okay, just shortly, two comments. One is I like the note of the industry because I'm coming from the vendor, but it's true. It's in fact, the lack of the resource in the industry, where I believe there was a survey of Cisco, if I remember well, 2019, 10 million people worldwide missing in the industry, okay? So I don't know whether this is true because always it's the numbers,
There's the total population of the Czech Republic.
Exactly, but it's quite, there will be some number missing, that's for sure. And now the technology will be the only one that will be able to help. So that's not even a question. We will not feed the gap within the next 5 years for sure, because the programs on universities mostly even do not exist. For the standard stuff, you know, we're not speaking of PhDs, but we're speaking of people with the I would say the operators. That would be a high school type of education. That's missing, you know, that the super feed of the people. You don't need a super educated people, because security is not a security science or rocket science, or how we call it. It's a standard job with some of the basic rules that you can really learn already on the high school. So we are missing the programs there. So that's just a topic, and again, it's for the national agenda. But where I wanted to lead, it's a comment to Philip. He has mentioned that the attack is easier than a defense. And that's, I believe, where all the national agenda should turn out, and I see the pattern in the Czech Republic already, that we should start to speak of active defense. So that's the Israeli concept, where we are not only defending, but the active defense, where you're able to attack back the attacker. That's something that needs to be put into the principle, because it's missing in the equation, and that's something that we really desperately need to set up standards for this within the legislative. Okay.
Okay, now I would like to give some room to the audience. Do we have a mic in the audience? Or maybe you can use mine.
Thank you. Good morning. I would like to come down a little bit to more concrete topic. We are discussing cybersecurity from many perspectives, or many points of perspective. The one is research. It was mentioned here. And if you take this topic on one side and you take the role of some leaders, either it are some countries, and we know that that the leading role of the countries mainly come from US, or if you come or if you take the point from the perspective of private segment, so then the question could be, and there are many questions when we come to research. The one which came to my mind is what is really the role of EU here, or how EU see this topic? What are currently the main focus areas in research in cybersecurity, and how we can position the research topics in the cybersecurity with reflection of fact that the private segment is really a technology owner and the leader, in fact. So if we can tackle a little bit this question.
We'll collect one more question. Rado?
Thank you, Marek. Good morning, everybody. I would like to greet our distinguished panelists today. Actually, I'm working in Brussels. I'm a so-called digital diplomat, and I know well these people around the panel. I don't have a question. I think the question would be responded. Igor covered it well as regards research, but I have a comment towards certification. Actually, this topic is absolutely necessary and indispensable to be solved soon. And I don't see, on a personal level, the way how it should be done purely voluntarily, like some member states tried to make NIS directive. We started to talk about artificial intelligence, about advanced robotics, about IoT, Internet of Things, and other well-advanced technologies which would help consumer, which would help administration and businesses. This is for sure. If the internal market, and this is the E area, we're talking all about, all legislations are made for the sake of the internal market. We can't have united, separated market. We have to have only one market. And if the market is being comprised of 27 member states, means that every member state has to believe the other member state, and in order to get liability, we need to have one mandatory regime for all. Of course, it shouldn't be a crew, it should be a very let's say, steady migration from the systems which are based on the voluntary level, like a SOGIS right now, or other certification systems. But in the end, we have to build one trustworthy mechanism, because the trust is the basis for everything. And without trust, even market do not work. So I see the only way to go further with the regulation on an ESA, either in the very same part or divided in two specific parts. Either is the option. However, in the end, we have to have one joint certification regime ready for liability, and I fully agree with Jean-pierre Nordvik here. I think that you got the point, and this is the way. Now we have a very important regulation which is changing the world, and it's the free flow of data. It's called about, well, it talks about non-personal data, not the personal data, which is already regulated by GDPR. However, this is only the start for the data revolution, and we will be generating a lot. Thank you very much for your time and for listening. Thank you.
Okay, so the last one from the audience, Mr. Weber. Then we continue.
I would like to second what my previous speaker said, that certification frame should be set up as quickly as possible. And by the way, there are running some projects on Horizon 2020 level, which are trying, say, even to reach some multi-party recognition, taking into account that German BSI C5 is based on ISAE standard, and the other European certification frames are ISO based. So not easy task, but I really would like to underline, yes, ENISA should create a recommended certification frame, because also in Slovakia, first step is say, cybersecurity law, and second should be National Certification Authority, which will guard that certification frame, and National Certification Frame. And that National Certification Frame is highly desirable, that it is not totally different from Norwegian and Portuguese and German, and this is the role of ENISA. So yes, as quickly as possible. Even if it's not absolutely covering 100% everything, it will be major step. And this is something which I do believe that we should do it as quickly as possible. And this is really second step after accepting cybersecurity law. Within very short time, it should be this. Because this is the reason why, for example, no cloud services are used cross-border in public administration, because public administration is extremely cautious about security. So, yes, better to do nothing than to risk. But then it is no single market. So everything is urgent. And probably on European level there should be very quickly, because it could be some frame which is already elaborated, like Cloud Security Alliance certification frame, open certification frame, or whatever else. But it should be European body, not some as a CSA is more or less a voluntary group. And it should be obligatory, not voluntary, because CSA is voluntary certification. Yes, thank you.
All right, so the gentleman, can you react?
So I will start replying the question on research. Also here we have the past and the future. In the past, Horizon 2020, but still at the present, let me say, the priorities, the European view on research is to promote and support research with Horizon 2020 funds. The priorities are defined by the program committee, which is composed by representatives from member states, from different ministries, not research, industry, or other, together with the European Commission. And with the creation of the public-private partnership, of the contractual public-private partnership on cybersecurity, and the creation of ECSO, we have been tasked to provide advice and suggestion for the to member states and the Commission for the definition of such priorities. So we have worked with the organization I'm running for many months to define, together with more than 300 experts, to a list of new priorities for the 2018-2020 work programs. And we are covering, we have produced a strategic research and innovation agenda, which is available on our website. And we have covered all the spectrum, well beyond what the Commission initially was intended. Well, it's that. You have certain areas, but we really covered everything. So we covered not only two specific technologies, not only in the application in different verticals, but also how we can develop the full ecosystem, because it's useless to develop technology or to develop services and solutions if you don't have the ecosystem, the market, which is it's ready to adopt and use this innovation. So we are looking also in certain issues linked to education and training, even if education is not funded today by the Commission, apart from some very, very minor part. But and so we are looking, at certification issues, how to, what kind of research project can be developed in standard and certification. So we're really covering the full sector. Then the Commission and Member State decided to take part of this quite well. They followed quite well our recommendation. And a couple of weeks ago, the new work program has been formally issued, so you can find it for the future. But this is the present, and the present has been built upon a budget which has been defined something like 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, you can imagine how much people could have understood how to invest in cybersecurity. Well, I'm a little bit exaggerating, but you know, there is a 7-year program for making a budget in the European institution for 7 years. For the next 7 years, well, we are starting today in discussion for the budget which will start in 2020 and then 2027. So this is the usual procedure. It happened also in the past. You can imagine how this 10 years ago, somehow people could have understood what should be invested today in cybersecurity when cyber is moving so fast. So this gives you an idea of how things are, the environment where we have to build the future. At the same time, as I said before, the Commission is looking to a new structure. A new structure which will be an evolution, which will help the evolution of the PPP into maybe a joint undertaking, which will help this definition of priorities and the assessment of priority, but also the fact the approval of a new project in a different configuration, where we really will work together, the Commission, the public administration, and the private sector, for say, okay, these are the priorities, and we have to invest in this direction, rather than spreading, like it's still today, the budget, which was a very small budget, in many directions. So, few words. In the future, we will have a more dedicated budget on cybersecurity and on cybersecurity research, which will be hopefully managed in a more structured way and more focused way on priorities, knowing that all this should remain flexible because cyber is changing every day.
Okay, so few reactions, very brief reactions, and then we will move actually to something which we already started discussing, and that is research in the domain of cybersecurity. So,
okay, I will just comment on what was said here. I think there is an instrumental the connection between the basic research and the application and development research afterwards. And what I believe the European Commission and the national government's role is to create enough funding for the basic research through the universities, through the specialized institutes, and with the programs which are aimed to the commercial sector to invest into the basic research. Then the application, I think we can be much more flexible than the European Union in terms of allocation of funds within the corporations. And we see the demand at the market, and we are able and willing to invest to bring the new products and those things. The only help is that really we have to come into the functional ecosystem with the money coming for the basic research, and we are seeing it recently. Just to comment on the 7 years planning circle and the European Union, I think we would get somewhere to the agriculture subsidies if we continue here. But
we don't want to go into this topic.
The flexibility of the allocation of the funds and the flexibility of the reaction of the European Union is a good example why we are also lacking in the cybersecurity, because the ability to take an action is limited with the mechanism which have created the European Union here.
And can you tell me some figures? How much money is in the horizon, and how much money are Americans investing as far as cybersecurity research is concerned? Do anyone of you have some just rough estimation?
500 million and 3 times.
So who wants to say the number? I mean, we know that it's going to be rough, so don't be worried about it.
It's usually a factor of 10.
Yes.
When not 20. So it's between 10 and 20 times more.
Okay.
That's
so
the usual factor that we have.
I don't think it needs any further comment.
Okay,
Yeah.
if I can. Just a comment to the research question, and I will just follow up here. It's we also have to bear in mind that everything is coming in certain waves, where some new breakthrough technology from the basic research appears. So what we can see right now as a trend in the security industry is there are 2 things. First is the artificial intelligence stuff. So all the machine learning and all that stuff, everything that was in the basic research developed in late 90s, early 2000s, is now breaking through into the industry, starting to be usable as the technology. And that why I'm saying it is it's super essential that focus of the European Union is purely on the basic research, because the basic research typically costs a lot of money, and at the very beginning there is not a visible technical use, the outcome of it, the money out of it, and therefore the private sector, until the sector sees that there is something in it and could yield, will not invest. Okay. So that's where we see the biggest role of the European Union is to fund the new ideas. Okay, don't call it even a cybersecurity research, because the cybersecurity will come later. The first is the basic idea of something new system, new type of computing, whatever. As soon as the quantum computers will be done, the security, as we know it now, will completely change, because cryptography will change. As soon as cryptography will change, it will change everything for everyone here, okay? This will be whole new world, okay? So if there's something needs to be invested, yeah, that will be. And if there's something needs to be invested now, is potential use of a quantum computing in a future aspects of maybe, related to cybersecurity. That's where the cybersecurity should look now in the basic research, because all the latest will be derived. So that's just my 5 cents, but I really would wish that the EU takes this way.
Your domain?
5 cents, my 2 cents now, a bit lower, but I'm modest. But first, very quick, I know we're running late on this question on research and on the different things what was said on the panel with respect to this forthcoming EU research and competence centers, which is, I think, really trying to address some of the weaknesses that you have mentioned in the financial sector. Really, if I read between the lines, the idea is really to try to bring a new type of governance where at the same time the European level, the national levels, and the industry are all together under one roof in order to understand where to invest and how to best invest timely in research, and also in trying to bring the results of this research into sustainable business model, so as to deliver eventually better product and services to the end user. So I try to bring all together everybody and potentially be accountable, proportionate, and respectful of our all fundamental rights. And then we have the full equation. And now I go to the research part, because many of you have mentioned about fundamental research. Yes, it's true. We need to fund, and actually I think, I'm pretty sure the Commission is funding on fundamental research, but it's not enough. We have seen with the quantum technologies a lot of funding on fundamental research, but then the patents goes outside of the Atlantic, and the products we're using are coming all from external third-party vendors here in Europe. And we have to reverse that trend again with trying to bridge with innovation into our industrial fabric here in Europe, located in physically in Europe. You have mentioned quantum technology. Yes, I guess it's going to be a major change in the future. I'm sure it's going to be a major change in the future. The question is, when will be this future? Since I graduated in '85, I know it's 20 years ago, further, but it's always been 20 years in front of us. Now, there's been a lot of progress, and there will be a major changes, in particular with respect to post-quantum technology, because the issue will not really that we will have all of us a quantum computer relatively soon. The problem is that as soon as we will have enough quantum computing power, most of all our traditional cryptographic primitives or encrypted materials will be subject to a quantum attack. So we have to invest and work on this post-quantum cryptography or on technology or quantum-safe technology. And as a matter of fact, we were part of the founders of this working group in ECSO working group on quantum-safe technologies. Because we need to build now, to develop and build now this post-quantum cryptography in all our systems, or at least develop the primitives so that in perhaps 10 years' time we have them. Because you know, we put at risk that things today encrypted will be decrypted in 30 years. And the secrecy of some of our very sensitive information goes up to 30, if not 40 and 50 years. So we have to hurry up on that. I am personally less convinced that we will see such a major change in terms of quantum cryptography applied itself for the distribution, for instance, of symmetric keys and things like that. I believe personally that it will remain a type of a niche market, but it's a very personal, and I know it's very debated in the ecosystem, and that there are a lot of other people which have a different opinions.
And when do you see it coming as a mainstream? This quantum whatever.
You know.
Quantum miracle.
I know. Let me do the parallel with artificial intelligence. When I graduated in '85 from Brussels University, I was starting my PhD on artificial intelligence, you know, on expert systems, on all these kind of things. It was a second wave of AI and machine learning. We thought it would change the world. It died completely. Now we have the third wave, and actually this time it's going to hit, okay? So machine learning is going to change, and AI is going to change our life, really. For quantum, I still want to see it happening, okay? There are not enough qubits currently put together in order to get that. We're getting there.
Okay.
We can discuss that.
The last announcement, like 50 qubits, it's already,
yes,
you know, we're moving somewhere,
yes,
okay?
40 qubits is available from ATOS
yes,
today.
Gentlemen,
no.
one by one, please.
Of course, there are. But now, how many qubits do you need in order to attack at 1024 bits RSA key? How many do you need? Okay, you're far long from that. Okay.
But yeah, I agree.
Okay, good.
It's just the thing is that as soon as
Use your mic.
Yeah, sorry. 5 years ago, there was nothing. Okay. Now we're speaking of a 50 qubits on IBM, and we see the massive doping, you know, into the topic. The money started to flow in 2 years ago massively. As soon as the money are flowing in, you will see that the jumps. You know, we're now on this, you know, like edge of the breakthrough. So I believe 10 years ahead, it's already here. Yeah, so it's a short time frame.
I agree with you, but now what we're missing, it's not like Monroe and micro electronics, where there's a clear blueprint in terms of engineering the process. It's still being defined, and today does not exist. So I just want to stay on facts. And currently, while we have a strong feeling all together that it will bring a change, we still do not have a clear business plan how it's going to happen. It will be there, but we do not know really when. Okay. By the way, we will issue soon 3 papers on 3 different types of quantum technology, one on communication, on quantum communication, another one on quantum timing, and a third one on quantum metrology, if I remember well soon. So where we do this type of analysis. But I think we have an agreement on this.
Anyone? Philip?
Well, I'll just say 2 things briefly. One, chiming in with the topics mentioned over here, is that basic research is critical in this field. I mean, it's been mentioned before. It's something the U.S. is terrible at funding, I think. The U.S. government is terrible at funding basic research, so that's definitely an area where Europe is ahead of us. And I think it was Tim Berners-Lee came up with his original idea for the World Wide Web, studying neurons in the brain, so we never know where this type of stuff is going to take us. To show my American side, I should just make one comment on certification. It's something that has come up again and again in the U.S. and is always beaten down because of the possible restrictions it could have on, small, medium-sized businesses, startups, and the chain it would put on innovation. But I think that the more realistic criticism is that the hazard with having certification and mandatory certification is that you end up with just pure compliance. And if you look at the financial services industry, the energy industry, if there's a new regulation that comes down that says you need to have these components in place, they will absolutely have those components in place, but they will not spend more than that. So I think that standards are coming, certification is coming. I just would say we need to think carefully about how we characterize that certification. I think that something in the U.S. that I agree with is maybe less so identifying specific, certification standards, and more so identifying certain vendors as preferred for security, and trying to generate those market forces that actually say that security is a value that consumers should seek out and should prefer those vendors that have a good reputation for security, that have good internal practices. I think Consumer Reports is starting to add a cybersecurity risk rating to certain products, and that in part it's going to take reputation of the business into consideration. So I think that there's ways to definitely drive security, but if you create strict compliance, it's not going to foster the kind of security culture in organizations that we really want to develop. So,
Ondřej?
First of all, we have in many of our slides in a commercial presentation a main statement, and that's compliance is not a security. Okay, that's the super official thing. It's as soon as you put in the, I would take one standard. It's a PCI DSS, okay, in PAN card industry standard. Sounds like the standard that it will resolve everything. But still companies, like that comply with the standard are being hacked. So to me, I like the idea that Philip mentioned at the very end. It's customer is driving the security. Because when customer starts to demand, and then the suppliers needs to change their products, and that means that if we want to get the demand for security, we need to educate the market. That's for me. It's the biggest role is to tell to people, okay, you want new TV from LG, Samsung, whoever. Ask the vendor if he's selling very secure or not. It's the camera which is on TV. Can someone use it to spy you? All those things. As soon as the people start to demand, then the vendors, even in its lowest segment, so we are not speaking of a big machine somewhere, like working for government, but for even the IoT stuff and everything, as soon as the security will be part of the demand, then the security will come in. As soon as there won't be demand, there won't be, because it costs money. Security costs money. And if the vendor should spend the money in a production for something, that is decreasing his margin, he'll do it only because he must. And if you tell him you have to do it for whatever reason, okay, so you will set a certain level of standard, but he will do everything possible to go onto the standard, you know, like just to deliver this compliance and that's it. So at the end of the day, the impact on security will be diminishable or minimum, and the price will grow. So the only one who can get a security from the vendor is the customer. He needs to demand it. And today's people do not demand security. They don't care. That's the problem.
Rastislav, please be very brief.
Very brief.
Concise.
Just to follow up what Ondřej said right now. According to many researches, 95% of customers' primary motivation is to just compliance right now. So customers are not really demanding security currently. So we are ending up with a chicken-egg problem, as usual. So how to break this circle and start somewhere is a question. And regarding the certification, one very short note. Current situation for the customer is sometimes very easy. Customer is choosing what kind of backdoor will have in his equipment based on the origin of the product. If it will be Western type backdoor or the Eastern type backdoor, that's all. And I'm unfortunately quite sure that the certification is not really able to tackle all the issues around this, but it might help to some extent. And if mandatory or not, this is for probably quite a long discussion.
Okay, thank you, Rastislav. So our time is running up, but you can continue the discussions afterwards. We have some few very interesting people here in the audience too, who are also dealing with cybersecurity. For example, Gerd Ringestadt, dealing with the cybersecurity issues on the level of the whole European Commission, basically. Then I saw Gilles dealing with the cybersecurity in Luxembourg. Yeah, but it's 10 o'clock, so we can only do a short wrap-up or a summarization. Luigi, can I kindly ask you to do this tough job because the discussion has been long, very interesting. We've discussed many things, many different opinions, so please.
Okay, so well, few words. We talked about the past, but okay, let's go to the future, back to the future. So future, we heard about quantum computing, artificial intelligence. Yesterday, discussion about humanity and technology. Well, you said that artificial intelligence will come up and maybe will take care of security. Will help, at least. Citizens, you said, security will be driven by the market, and the citizens don't care much about security today. I would say that this is also due because in our personal feeling is that security is provided. It's something that society is providing you. It's the operators, energy or telecom or transport operator. Is the public administration, the security of a country. So it's something which is a given. I don't know how many of you are spending money for buying an antivirus for your own computer. Your own, not the professional. I don't know how many of you are really investing in for the security of your own data. So this is a good point, I think. At the same time, things are evolving, and we will realize that we are realizing progressively that threats are really taking on us, really cyber threats. So we are changing our approach to cybersecurity, to the ICT world. We heard about the quantum computing will change completely the society. So what will be tomorrow? I don't know. I don't know exactly. For sure, I do agree that the market will drive the need. But the role of our role is, for the time being, today. Today, and you are here. If you are here, sorry, I'm jumping maybe, but there is a logic in what I would like to close this this panel. Is that if you are here today, is because you're really interested in cybersecurity. because you are somehow expert with respect to the wider population. And you have to realize that today we are living very interesting days because it's a period of transformation where we had a very weak interest in cybersecurity to something which will be in the future. The future will be leveraging maybe on what we said before, a higher budget at European Commission level. We'll leverage upon new technologies. So, but we are in transition period, and people like us somehow are those who have the capability today to make this transition from the past to the future. So don't feel it passive simply because you are here in the audience listening or maybe having some questions. Feel active and be a protagonist of the way how Europe will go to creating its own approach on cybersecurity and provide the public administration or the European institutions or the private sector with the suggestion you deem necessary for your own protection of your data, but also for the evolution of the society. This, I can tell you, we are really, really living very interesting days.
You've been talking like a book. No.
It's
Okay.
scaring me.
Thank you very much, Luigi, for a very good